Hello there.
You're a feisty little one. Fit him with a restraining bolt.
Meshlimerid gifted a tier 1 sub to Ravalik.
You're a feisty little one. Fit him with a restraining bolt.
Meshlimerid gifted a tier 1 sub to Stream Elements.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Sunday's writing workshop. Although it's more of a lore workshop today. For those who might be new to the stream, my name is Meshla. I am primarily an audiobook streamer. What that means for me is that I write and read my own Star Wars fanfiction, and I have been doing so for the last 25 years, and I've been reading it here on Twitch for about the last year or so, give or take. And tonight, we are going to do something a little bit different. So, give me just 1 second while I pull up my notes here. There's a lot going on. Alrighty. Yes. Thank you, Wraith. I appreciate that. Yes, I am trying to troubleshoot some tech issues, so please bear with me a second. Alright. So, like I said, tonight is going to be slightly different than our normal writing workshops, and I'm actually going to turn the music down just a smidge, at least on my end. Do let me know if the music is too loud for you guys, not loud enough. Love to know some audio feedback in the chat. I just turned it down via my headphones so that I'm not turning it down for you guys. So yeah. I actually... Oh, good. Okay. I can never tell because I'm actually wearing headphones, as you can see. I know! I really like that tonight. It's super chill. I'm actually, like, really digging that tonight. It kind of fits the vibe today, so I am cool with that. Alright. So, as I said, my focus tonight is going to be a little bit different. For those of you who have been here through my various streams, and especially my writing workshop streams, I have touched on the Katani lore and culture a few times, but I haven't really gone much deeper than that. I've kind of touched on how it ties into the story, but I haven't really done a deep dive. And as you might have noticed, the title for today's stream is called The Shape of Silence. There is a reason for that. Okay. Take a little second here. Oh, crunchy. Sorry. Do a little stretchy. Yes. Also, if you see me slouching or think I need a drink of water or a snack or anything like that, please feel free to play with the channel points. That's why they are there. They're there for my benefit and for your enjoyment, or to just mess with me. That's fine too, within reason. So yeah. So we're going to do something a little bit different, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into Atashiir, which is the Katani language. And we're going to look at how it kind of ties into the culture as a whole. And all sorts of cool things like that. Alright. So, the language built on silence. When we talk about Atashiir, we're not talking about a simple alphabet or even just a vocabulary. We're talking about a philosophy, a way of carrying truth, emotion, obligation, and grief through layers of communication that all serve different purposes. Among the Katani, the spoken word is very powerful, but it can also be dangerous. Words carry weight. They bind oaths and can expose souls or identities that must remain hidden. And so, over generations, the culture developed an entire ecosystem of communication. The spoken word for truths that must be heard, gestures for truths not safe to say aloud, braids and beads for truths carried privately, script or different written languages for truths that need to endure, and veil doctrine for truths that must be protected, even from friends. This layered approach is not excessive. It is necessary to the Katani way of life. It reflects a culture shaped by survival, honor, loss, and the constant need to speak without speaking. Tonight, we're going to explore all of that, from the philosophy beneath the language to the scripts carved on marine tags and the braids tied for those among the culture, or those among the dead. We're going to look at why the Katani communicate the way they do, and what those layers tell us about who they are. We'll start where the language comes from, and then move through each layer: braids, script, doctrine, memory, and silence. Give me just 2 seconds while I move some stuff around. All right. I'm gonna move some things around here. Oh, goodness. Well, I have a question for you guys. I want you to think about this for a minute. What's a language or tradition in Star Wars that has always fascinated you? Okay? Just think about that for a second. It could be anything in Star Wars that has really kind of grabbed your attention. It could be, for instance, the Mandalorians. It could be something about the Jedi history. It could be, I don't know, the Java language. Anything that you guys find really fascinating within Star Wars lore and culture. Just take a couple minutes to think about that. I know. But I want to see if anybody else has anything going on, because honestly, I'm always curious about what you guys think. So, okay. Right. Oh, there we go. I don't know about you guys, but Atashiir kind of got away from me a little bit. But maybe that's a good thing. It's a little bit maybe we'll find out. Maybe so. All right. Sorry, I'm checking my notes here. So, Atashiir itself is really complex, and as we mentioned before, it's a layered language. Early Katani life really shaped the language. It demanded quiet. The mountain passes, the dense forests, the cities, all are environments where sound traveled too far. A single careless word could give away a scout's position or expose a hidden home. From that environment came the foundation. Silence is safety, precision is respect, and not everything spoken should be heard by everyone. This cultural foundation still shapes Atashiir today, and now, because I'm creating it, even the simplest script, Laharan, the everyday civilian form, is described as a line carried quietly. That phrase alone tells you how the Katani think about communication. Language is something you carry with discipline, not something you broadcast freely. Sorry, I'm flipping back and forth between my notes. Given what you guys know about me and my level of nerdiness when it comes to lore, does it surprise you at all that I have created a language that has layers? Might have a problem. Maybe. I don't think so, though. Okay. If you lived in an environment where sound would be a problem, how do you think that would change how you communicated with the people around you? No, I think that, at least for me in developing Atashiir, like it really made me think about why Atashiir is the way it is, and that's kind of why I wanted to do this whole stream tonight, to kind of take you guys behind the curtain a little bit. to see the level of my nerdiness. There's a lot going on with that. There really is. Alright. Okay. And as I mentioned before, there's a philosophy behind why the language is layered. It has, if you will, a moral weight. Words bind, gestures signal intent, and braids can carry memory, or they can read as kind of a life story. Silence is an active choice. In daily life, speaking too much is seen as a breach of emotional discipline. A person who speaks carelessly in Katani culture is viewed the way a soldier who fires randomly down a corridor would be: reckless, dangerous, and untrained. So Katani culture expands communication into layers, not to complicate, but to protect. The first layer is spoken language, or Atashiir itself, used for truth that must be heard. The second layer is gestures. This is used for truth that must be conveyed without drawing attention. The third layer is braid lexicon. We'll get to that a little bit later. The fourth layer is script forms, or the actual written language. The fifth layer is veil codes. And this is used for truths that would get someone killed if they were spoken aloud. This is why Katani culture seems quiet, introspective, and reserved. It's not emotional repression as you might think. It's emotional discipline, shaped by centuries of surviving in hostile conditions. Of those 5 layers, which layer speaks the most to you? Or which feels the most alien to you? There's a lot going on in here. So again, we have layer 1, which is the spoken language, used for truths that must be heard. The second layer is gestures, used for truths that must be conveyed without drawing attention. The third layer is the braid lexicon or language, which is used for truths too personal or too sacred to speak aloud. The fourth layer is script forms, or the actual written forms of Atashiir. There are 3, which are used for truths that must endure across generations. And then there's the 5th layer of veil codes. There's manual and haptic, which is similar to Morse code. This is used. Veil codes are used for truths that would get someone killed if they were spoken. So, of those 5, which feels the most alien to you? Or which do you resonate with the most? I know, that's a lot. Okay. There's a lot of layers to Katani culture. I didn't actually realize that until I started diving into it for Stream Prep, I'm not gonna lie. Oh man. Alright. The braids. The braids worn into Katani culture can be many different things. They can be memory made visible, as we already touched on. The braids worn in Katani culture also have kind of a language of their own. Yeah, haptic is essentially Morse code, which is, I actually found that really interesting, but it makes a lot of sense. You know, when you think about the haptic pulse code or even manual veil code in the context of the stories, it makes so much sense. It really does. Yeah, actually having a Star Wars version of Morse code was really fun to play with. I'm not gonna lie. That was really fun to play with, and I'm still kind of developing that a little bit. I'm actually really interested about that. But we'll get there. Yes and no. It's kind of custom, but I guess you could kind of call it a cross between ASL and maybe like military combat signs. I don't know what the actual term for that is. But yeah, kind of. Alright. So I suppose you could. Okay. According to the Patani hair traditions and symbolic braiding, hair is a quiet bearer of story. It's not ornamentation or even vanity. It marks one's status, one's vows, one's grief, and even their transformation. Among the hair traditions, different styles communicate different truths. The Oran dye, which is a warrior's braid, signifying vigilance. The Thraikor, a vow braid, marking commitment to a way of training or a particular path. The Daran Vek, which signifies one's position of leadership and responsibility. Each of these styles carries meaning that doesn't need to be spoken aloud. A single knot tells a more complex story than a paragraph of words ever could. Hmm. I'm gonna go peek at something real quick. There we go. Okay, so I mentioned three different kinds of braids, okay? And we have an ad starting in 5 minutes. I am so sorry. The braids that I mentioned actually, they're kind of, there's three different types that were mentioned. So the orendai, called the warrior's tie. It's a single braid at the base of the skull, wrapped tightly and wound low on the neck. It's worn by active combatants or military service members, or those who have completed formal martial training. It often includes a narrow leather wrap or pine-colored thread, symbolizing the burden of vigilance. The the core, which is a vow braid, a side braid worn behind the ear, usually behind the right ear, which is the position one might think of having a Padawan braid, but the Thakor is different. It has a distinct intention. It marks a vow undertaken, such as service, protection, or mourning. If paired with colored threads or beads, the braid silently declares its meaning. The Da Renvek, which is a shield knot. This is a more complex style reserved for ceremonial leaders, captains, or figures of strategic rank. The hair is braided back, then coiled at the crown and pinned with a forged clasp or ring. It is meant to signal strength bound by discipline. Flipping back and forth between documents, I'm so sorry. And then there is the memorial braid, also known as the Natarin Vahalia. The memorial braid is a central example of how Katani communication uses silence as language. It translates roughly to the quiet remembrance or the echo carried forward. The Katani memorial braid is placed behind the left ear, which is the same side as the heart. It contains several different things, such as red thread for honoring a parent or leader, gray for grief, teal for healing, copper for earned honor, this is never given lightly, basalt or durasteel beads for grounding and survival. These threads and beads do not need to be explained to anyone trained to understand them. A Katani who sees these colors knows, even without asking, what grief or memory a person carries. And this is not something that is really discussed openly. If you see it and you understand what it means, you know. You don't talk about it. It's actually, to ask in Katani culture is considered very intrusive. The braid kind of speaks for itself, when words should not. Hello, Lord. Welcome in. It's good to see you. I hope you're well this evening. All right. I'm actually going to go peek at this document. There's some interesting little cultural bits of lore as well. As I said, it is typically worn over the left shoulder, which is the same side of the body as the heart. and the bearing of a burden in Katani thought. Among Jedi raised in Katani traditions, it is not considered a sign of clinging to the past. Instead, it is seen as a gesture of stillness and witness, a symbol of resilience, not retreat. The threads and beads woven into the fahalia, such as red silk, sacrifice, gray thread, grief, or tokens like scorched steel, are offerings of memory shaped into legacy. We have an ad starting in 36 seconds, my friends. The memorial braid is a lesser known but deeply personal tradition observed in select Katani families and among certain Jedi and military circles. It is distinct from ceremonial braids or honor cords. It is worn in private remembrance of loss, survival, or even transformation. The braid is not associated with rank or formal rites, but reflects a deeply internal journey. And I'm going to BRB because we have an ad, my friends! Alright, my friends, we are back from our ad break, I hope. Sorry about that. It caught me by surprise a little bit. Anyway, where was I? Ah, yes. Yes, perfect timing. I do try. So, we are talking about the Katani Memorial Braid right now. And I just want to talk a little bit about some of the design elements and why they're used. As I said previously, it is always behind the left ear. This symbolizes what is carried close or close to the heart, but never declared aloud. It can have many core elements, and this can vary by individual or family, and I did mention a few of those previously. They can have various different colors of thread, different types of beads or charms, and each of these colors has a meaning. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but I did touch on a few of these earlier. Red is honoring a parent or a leader. Gray is often for mourning. Let's see. Copper is earned honor or proven merit. Respect claimed, but not given. And then there are lots of other colors, such as bronze, which is weathered strength, endurance through pain or time, which Marin has done a lot of that. But you can also add beads or charms. These beads are typically small and matte finished, often made of stone, metal, or glass. The materials may include unpolished lapis, basalt, aged durasteel, or even volcanic glass. Like threads, each bead's color reflects a chosen aspect of grief, remembrance, or endurance. These beads may be etched, shaped, or worn smooth, reflecting how memory evolves over time. These beads may be anchored at the top and bottom of the braid, mirroring ceremonial braid structure. They may be spaced throughout, woven with threads to indicate turning points or layered memory. They may be intentionally grouped, either symmetrically, there we go, or as a developing record. In Marin's particular instance, her memorial braid it's kind of a record of the things that she has endured. So. Right. Ooh. And as a final note on the memorial braid, there is something key to remember. Silence is actually the highest form of remembrance. The Katani don't speak of grief. They shape it. They wear it. They let it breathe beside them. This is one of the clearest windows into their view of the world. Grief is private. Remembrance is sacred. Words are often the last resort, not the first. Oh gosh, I lost my window. Hold on. Thank you, Wraith. I appreciate you always looking out for me. See, I have water. I appreciate you, sir. Right. Yes, yes, indeed. All right. I don't know about you, but one of the reasons why I created the memorial braid, it's a way to honor grief without kind of being in your face about it, or kind of like being really blatant about it. I'm sure all of us have experienced grief at different points in our lives, and I wanted a way to acknowledge that without, making it painful, not really becoming a topic of conversation. Just a way to kind of honor the the things or the people that you're remembering. You know, and it could be for a multitude of reasons. Imagine a culture where grief is respected as deeply as it is in Katani culture. That no one asks about how you're feeling. No one asks about whatever it is that you're grieving, whether it's a person or an event. It's just there. You know, it's not there to be talked about. It's just there, and people, you know, people would see that braid and they would understand. Oh. Yeah, it's I never realized like how kind of important that was until I really started digging into stuff for this stream. Mm. Oh. Do I have anything else in the braid that I want to talk about? Let's see. I'm actually not going to talk about Marin's specific braid because that is massive spoiler territory. So I'm not going there. What are you curious about, Wraith? Please ask. Questions are more than welcome. That's why we're doing this stream. So please ask. I swear all I'm drinking is water! Oh, that is a really great question, Wraith. That is a really, really great question. Let me see if I can find out for you. Silence. And the process of becoming. You know, I'm not actually sure. Ooh. Let's see. Hey, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their own ways to relax. Absolutely nothing wrong. I'm researching a bit to answer your question, Wraith. Good evening, the sniper. Welcome in. It's good to see you. So for chat's benefit, Wraith asks about beads. What would be the colors to What would be the colors to represent silence in its purest form and the process of becoming? Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so I don't have a bead in my list that speaks to silence specifically. The closest that I have is a color called Dust Road, which is a muted mauve or kind of a pink gray, which signifies respect born of quiet influence, for mentors, elders, or those whose presence shaped the bearer through quiet strength. And becoming, the closest that I have for that is probably bronze, which signifies weathered strength, endurance through pain or time. That's a really great question, actually. And like I said, the list that I have is not exhaustive. It kind of covers the more common colors that might be used. So that's a specific use case, and I might have to come up with some. But that's actually a really, really great question. Thank you for that, Rage. Let's see if there's anything else in here. Let's see. Yeah, that was not, I didn't have specific colors for that, but I'm glad that I had something that was close to that. Right. So the main part of our focus tonight is on Atashiir, the language, so the written forms of it, and the various different pieces of the culture that kind of tie into it. Atashiir, in and of itself, is actually divided into 3 forms. There's 3 major types, and each kind of reflects a certain truth, and this could be duty, life, and memory. The first script form that we're going to take a look at is called Laharan, often referred to as the Path of the Living. This is the civilian form of the script, and these are scripts that I have not yet developed, but I am working on. So the first one is Laharan. It means a line carried quietly. The symbols are soft and rounded. They're used often in letters, ledgers, and schoolwork. It is a script of ordinary endurance. It is intentionally humble. It is not ornamented. It is easy for children and families to learn. It is easy to write in cramped conditions. And it reflects a cultural belief that the everyday life of a person deserves clarity, not ceremony. What would, if you were to develop a script that would reflect your everyday life, think about maybe what you do for work or as a major hobby. If you were to develop a script that reflected your everyday life, what do you think that would look like? And for each person, it's going to be different. Let me tell you, I was not expecting to have 3 different forms of Atashiir kind of come into being, but here we are. Such is my life as a lore gremlin. Aww, you can always revisit it. I haven't actually, as I was just telling chat, welcome in, Grizz. I actually haven't developed the actual written forms of Atashiir yet. I am holding off on that because I want to do it justice. Oh, well, you could always start over if you feel like it. If you don't, that's okay too. It's an ongoing project of mine to develop the actual, like, written language. It's a whole thing. So it is a long-term project of mine. But that's just something to kind of get your brains turning a little bit. Good to see you, Gris. I haven't seen you in a little while, so it's good to see you here. The second form of Atashiir is called Narith, which is the soldier's line. It is the stroke set in silence. The letters are angular, carved. They're found on things such as marine tags, doors, and even on orders. It is often viewed as a script of discipline. A soldier's name, carved or written in Nerith, becomes a vow. I stand with this. I will act in accordance with this identity. Nerith rejects flourish. There are no curves, no softness. It is clarity under duress, designed to be read under stress or in low visibility. So think of it kind of like, I guess it would be similar in format to maybe Boothark? Boothark is very angular, so that's the only kind of comparison that I can make. And Nerith is definitely seen as a language that kind of stands the test of time. I'm gonna look at something. Let's see. There's a lot of things that I'm developing with the language, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole just yet. But there is a lot going on with Atashiir still. So many things that are still in motion. Alright. The third form of Atashiir is called Sireth, which is the sacred form of Atashiir. It is often referred to as woven remembrance. It is more flowing and complex than Laharan and Nerith. It ties to ceremonial rites, things that are memorialized. It's not really written. It's more woven, kind of like a braid. It has it can also contain kind of subglyphs or kind of annotations on a character for honor, grief, remembrance, and vows, actually. And if Laharan is the unmarked braid, which is this very plain text, Sireth is a ceremonial knot, heavy and layered. Okay, it's all of this ties back into the braid culture. Oh man. So if you had, say you had a scroll written in Sireth for, let's see if I can give an example. So when Marin is confirmed as Lady Durza. Sorry, minor spoiler. So when Marin is confirmed as Lady Durza in front of the Katani court, that would be a scroll that is written in Cyrith, which is the kind of flowing formal script of Atashiir. So it would look very, very pretty. It might be similar in form to like maybe Wenya. If you guys are familiar with that, that's the really flowy script from the One Ring and Lord of the Rings. But like I said, I haven't actually developed the written forms of any of these yet, so we'll get there. I'm just trying to draw comparisons for you. Oh, we have an ad starting in 5 minutes, my friends. Oh my goodness. All right. Okay. Oh. So remember how we were talking about how the spoken word in Katani culture is really important? We're about to touch on why. Honor, assent, and refusal. The ethical heart of Atashiir. No part of the language reflects Katani culture more clearly than the doctrine of Thalin and Varith. The ethical axis of assent and refusal. Thalin, which literally translates as I stand with this. It's not agreement, it's not yes. It's acceptance with readiness to act. To speak Thalin is to bind oneself to the consequences of the choice, and there are even different levels of assent or acceptance. Rishon, which simply means I hear you. Vithay, which means understood. Thalin, which is I stand with this or I support this. And Thalin Sar, which is the formal version of Thalin, which translates as I bind myself to this truth. This is moral weight in linguistic form. And in contrast, we have Varith, which means I step apart. It is not disrespect. It is not even a rebellion. It is a refusal spoken with integrity. Better a quiet Varith than a false Thalin, Katani say. Katani culture teaches children saying no honestly is honorable. Saying yes without intent to complete the thing is shameful. This runs counter to many galactic cultures where obedience is prized above truth. Yeah. I started digging into Varith and Thalin and it went down a rabbit hole. Oh man. So here's a question for you guys to think about. We have an ad starting in just under 2 minutes. Which is harder for you? Saying yes honestly or no honestly and meaning either one? Which do you feel is harder for you to do? For me, I know that it can be really hard to say no to someone, but something that I've learned over the years, and we'll touch on this a little bit farther down, something that I've learned for me personally over the years is when you say no, it helps to provide a reason. Because if you just say no, I can't do that, or no, I won't do that, they might think that you're just being difficult. So it helps to provide context. Maybe the thing that you're being asked to do is not possible for you to physically do, or maybe you don't have time, or maybe it would put you in a difficult position. There could be any number of reasons. So which do you feel would be harder for you to do? Saying yes or no on it? Something to think about during the ad break. Oh, goodness. Our ad is going to start in about 20 seconds. Please take some time to go get some water, grab a snack, stretch your limbs. I know that I am really bad about doing that. You know, get up and walk around for a minute. Anything like that. Be sure to take care of yourselves. I'm just here to share my knowledge. I'll see you guys in a minute and a half. All right, my friend. We are back from our ad break. Thanks so much for sticking around through that. I apologize that I cannot remove them indefinitely. I wish I could. Right. So we were looking at Varith and lesser refusals. There are varying levels of refusal. Let me find my notes over here. Oh my goodness. So many things going on. Alright. But first, let's look at their kind of stance on refusals. Saying Verith or no in itself is not dishonor or dishonorable. It's you know, it's when you do so falsely because you're trying to avoid something. There are kind of different instances when Verith is viewed as acceptable. A true and honorable Verith is spoken when one believes an order or direction violates moral or spiritual law. One is physically or mentally unable to complete the task, and to speak Thalin would be a lie. Or one recognizes a path they cannot walk and refuses without deceit or contempt. So, some things to think about. And then, when saying no can become dishonorable, or Verith Kal, this occurs when refusal is spoken to avoid responsibility, to leave comrades in danger, or to reject guidance, duty, or care out of pride or spite. This is not punished by law, but a quiet withdrawal of trust. The elders would say, Verith may preserve the soul, Verith Kal isolates it. So, some things to think about in terms of Ghatani culture. Let me see if I can find that. Good grief. There we go. Let's see. So there are varying levels of refusal. It's kind of a spectrum. It's not really kind of an absolute thing. Unless you make it that way. Alright. Sorry. Trying to dual screen over here. Oh dear. This is what happens when I'm trying to be all techy and make it work. You know. So the first one, so there are kind of 4 levels of refusal other than Verith, just Verith itself. The first being Valor, which basically means I cannot, maybe not right now. It's a soft refusal, and it also provides a limitation. It's often used when one is willing in spirit, but physically or due to circumstance is unable to. This is not dishonorable if it's honest. There's no Shar, which in short form means I must wait, or I withhold my answer. It's a delay due to uncertainty. Basically it's asking for a formal pause. It signals the need for more information or time. This must be received This must be resolved later by Thalin or Verith once they receive the information. Then there is Drathal, which is a refusal with acceptance of consequences. This carries some weight. It is seen as a strong refusal or protest. It is used when the person believes the command or request is unethical or harmful. It carries implied willingness to face disciplinary or social repercussion. And then there is Loven, which is basically permit me to step aside. It is a respectful withdrawal. It's used to excuse oneself from the discussion, duty, or tradition without conflict. This is more a social use than moral. Okay. So there are different kind of levels and impacts to saying no. And you can use the different terms to indicate which, what kind of level you're at when you're saying no and why you're saying no. It does demonstrate a cultural maturity. Dissent or refusal is structured, it's not chaotic. There are specific reasons you would use a specific term. So yeah, it's a thing. So a note on Lolven specifically. This is seen as a social withdrawal. It's not moral or duty based. It's simply stepping back from the situation. It's often used during grief, heated debates, or times of personal discomfort. Everybody has discussions that make them uncomfortable, whatever it might be. And so Lolven would be a way for the person to step back without, without kind of losing face, I suppose. Oh. Take a look. We're getting to the fun part. Ooh, this could be fun. Yeah, we're getting to a really fun part. Oh boy. Yes, this is gonna be this is like the kind of meaty portion of what I wanted to talk about tonight. There's a lot in here. Oh man. Okay. Now we're going to talk about General Doctrine. Okay. So, for those of you who have been here a little while, you might remember that I have talked about Veil Doctrine a little bit. Basically, it is silence as protection. And it isn't just military secrecy. It's a continuation of the cultural layering of communication that we've been talking about this whole time, and pretty much in every single stream. It weaponizes silence, it ritualizes secrecy, and it protects identity itself. This is getting into some heavy lore, so just bear with me a little bit. Philosophy of the Veil. The galaxy cannot destroy what it cannot name. That is part of the Veil Doctrine that I've been working on. This applies to names, identities, kinship, family ties. These can all become liabilities under, when looked at by someone who is an enemy. Thus, the Veil Doctrine protects individual lives, lineage, reputation, unresolved grief, or even grief in progress. It's a system where even mourning must sometimes be hidden. Yeah. Let's see. So, Veil Doctrine is a set of military but also cultural protocols designed to preserve life, maintain operational secrecy, and protect the names and legacies of those who must move unseen in times of war or peril. This is rooted in Katani Marine warfare traditions of silent honor and protected kin, ancient Jedi practices of concealment and preservation of the vulnerable, post-Galvis operations, and Death Watch incursions that necessitated stringent concealment to avoid enemy retaliation. The third one is referenced to in-universe lore within the stories. So there are 4 key principles to the Veil Doctrine that I want to kind of touch on a little bit. The first is silence as shield. Identities, affiliations, and mission parameters are locked under multi-tiered veil clearances. Names are never spoken unnecessarily. Ranks are veiled under operational designations. So Marin would never be referred to by her actual name. She has a veil designation. The second one is legacy carried and quiet. Those placed under veil protection may carry identifiers such as braid beads, razatal, which is a woven wrist bracelet, or sigils that are only the cleared may read or interpret. 3. The need to know only. Information is compartmentalized to ensure even allies cannot inadvertently betray a veiled operative or survivor. And 4. Restoration of name. This doctrine includes rights to formally return a name to public record when it is safe to do so, often accompanied by military or a cultural ceremony. So, there's a lot. There's a lot going on. The doctrine integrates 3 main things from the braid language or silent identifiers. There is the silent strand, which is gray silk woven into the braids, marking someone as carried under veil. There is a specific pin that you wear on a cloak or a jacket. It's a closed circle clasp, signaling someone is carrying a protected identity. Or there is certain marks on the armor, indicating a ghost asset is present. This continues the tradition that memory, identity, and honor can be carried silently without exposing them to danger. Oh my goodness. Let me see if I can find those. One moment. Here we go. There we go. Yes. So as we have been talking about in Katani culture and also Veil Doctrine, there's a lot of times when within Katani culture and even Marine Doctrine, it's not safe to speak. To name someone openly can expose them to danger or dishonor while they are under Veil protection. Over centuries of warfare and covert operations, a set of visual markers have evolved, a language of threads, knots, patches, and even beads, to indicate when someone is carried under Veil or when they have survived it. These symbols are understood only by those trained to read them, Marines, Jedi bound by Katani tradition, or even chosen kin. These can come in several forms. There is the veil binding thread, Nahatarin Vesval, a thin gray or muted silver cord tied discreetly around the left wrist or secured to a braid of the person's kin or protector. This indicates a living person whose status or identity cannot be spoken, only carried in silence. This is commonly used after combat extractions or covert missions where survival must remain unknown. It is usually tied as a 2-loop knot for operational veil, 3 loops for full ghost status. There is also the threshold knot, which is a temporary tie worn until the veil restoration rite is performed. It is often pinned in household shrines to mark someone as waiting to return. There are also various braid markers, such as the silent strand that I talked about a couple of minutes ago. This is Nahatarin Val Le, a thread of unpatterned matte gray or black silk woven into the braid. This signals to insiders one of ours is carried under veil. It may be worn by family, comrades, or commanding officers. Names of the veiled individual are never spoken in connection with the braid. There is also the copper recovery thread. This is added only after a survivor returns and veil protection is lifted. It's woven alongside memorial or Padawan braids, signifying earned honor and endurance in silence. It is often paired with a white bead, which signifies a fresh start if the veil restoration rite has been performed. There are marine honor patches called echo marks. These are worn on the underside of a marine's pauldron or gauntlets, visible only to other veil-cleared operatives. It is marked with 3 concentric lines. The inner is black, the middle is gray, the outer is copper. This tells the viewer, there is a ghost among us. Do not speak what you know. There are also various sash and garment symbols. There is... this gets into a little bit more lore. There is a Laheatoran pattern, which is a geometric pattern that kind of symbolizes like a river or things like that. And so it's a version of the river line and wind path weave where the silver threads are intentionally broken or unjoined, symbolizing a path walked out of sight. This can be worn by kin or commanding officers at court to honor a veiled individual without calling them by name. There's also an engraved pin. It's a small metal clasp shaped like a half-closed circle. It's often used to secure the sash or cloak of those operating under veil clearance. This indicates protected status even to those who do not know specifics. So yeah, there's a whole bit of lore behind that. I don't want to get into too much of that because that's spoiler territory. Just a bit. Alright, I'm actually getting really warm. Sorry. Got warm all of a sudden. Alright. Okay. I need water. Wait 1 second while I find my notes on here. We would add starting in 5 minutes, my friends. There are also different veil rites that deal with the restoring of the name. The ceremony is called Vetha Nacht, which sounds kind of German. It is a ceremony that restores identity, honor, one's place in the family or place in service. And it involves the naming stone, the hand binding cord, which is the Vas Seren, reweaving of the memorial braid if they have one, an addition of new threads, such as copper and white. Let me see if I can find that. One second. There we go. There we go. So the Veil Restoration Rite, known in Atashiir as Vetha Nacht, is a solemn ceremony designed to officially lift a veil placed upon an individual. There's different levels of veil clearance or kind of veil enactment. And it's also designed to publicly or privately acknowledge their survival or return from presumed death. It is both a military clearance act and a cultural healing rite, meant to mend the fracture caused when identity was deliberately erased for their own protection. It is traditionally conducted at dawn or twilight, when the world transitions between light and shadow, mirroring the passage from silence to remembrance. It is often held in a quiet court hall, an open-air courtyard, or a mountaintop grove, sometimes near ancestral shrines or a house's stone circle. Only those cleared to know the full truth, such as commanding officers, close kin, and chosen family, are allowed to attend. The space is kept silent except for the ceremony itself, often marked by a lone ceremonial lamp or fire. There are several core elements of the rite. I'm trying to keep track of the time, sorry. The naming stone, which is Durvahal. It's a small carved stone bearing the individual's sigil or lineage mark. It's placed in the household shrine when the veil was invoked and marked as fallen. During the rite, it is retrieved, cleaned, and set in place before the returning one. Its placement symbolizes your name, once ash, is now carved again. And I'm gonna... the next element of the rite is the hand binding, which is Vas Seren. It's a ceremonial cord tied between the veiled individual's left wrist and their closest kin or commander. The knot is tied with 3 loops. The first loop symbolizes silence endured. The second loop, the bond unbroken despite the distance. The third loop, the name restored to the open sky. When untied, the final knot is pressed to the heart before the cord is placed in the family shrine. I'm gonna actually stop there because our ad is starting in about 30 seconds, my friends. I don't want to get rudely interrupted by the ad again. I'm so sorry. So we're gonna stop there for the moment. Okay. Be back in a minute and a half, my friend. Alright, my friends, we are back from our ad. Thanks so much for hanging out. I appreciate you. Right, where was I? Ah, yes. We were talking about the different elements of the veil restoration. Let's see. Ah, yes. The third element is the reweaving of the braid or the rosatelle, which is the bracelet. If the memorial braid or the rosatelle was tied for the presumed fallen, it is undone and rewoven beside the returning one, binding the living presence to the legacy carried. The threads are replaced with copper, earned honor, blue, trust restored, and white to signify a fresh start, unless another thread has deeper personal meaning. All right. You know what? Let me find my notes here. So, that was a lot in an hour and 40 minutes. So, I'm actually going to try and cap this off with a little bit of discussion. Because there's been a lot going on. So what does all this say about Katani culture? It says a lot. Honor in Katani culture is precision. It is exacting. Welcome back, Rafe. Honor isn't loud. It's not forceful. It's truthful. The Katani concept of honor is measured by the integrity of one's communication, whether it's spoken or silent. So, and we talked about Thulin and Varys and the different kind of degrees of each. And secondly, grief is carried. It's not performed. It's shaped into braids, cords, knots, forms that have meaning. The words are reserved for when the silence needs structure, because silence is sacred. Silence in Katani culture is not absence. It is a boundary, a signal, a shield, even, a ritual, or a language all its own. Silence communicates as much as speech, sometimes more. Language is a mirror of one's identity. The stratified forms of Atashiir reflect the stratified structure of the culture. I know, right? Or the structure of the heart, such as everyday life, one's duty, memories, grief, and the oaths that they swear, the secrecy they carry, their identity, and most especially, their legacy. No single mode of communication can carry all of that, so they built a language that could. Alright. So I'm gonna I'm gonna talk a little bit more about the different elements and how they connect to the story as a whole. Okay. But the big question we're trying to look at here is, why does Atashiir exist at all? Why did I spend so much time creating this, for lack of a better word, the monster in my closet that is Atashiir? It's this whole thing. And Katani culture in general. Okay. So we're going to look at a few kind of story hooks, okay? Some ways that I've applied things, this whole lore and culture to the story. The first being the braid that a character never explains. Take Marin, for example. She arrives wearing a memorial braid, the Natarin Vahalia. Nobody asks about it, but the reader sees every thread added, removed, or retied. Grief evolves through color, not spoken dialogue. And this is especially true for Marin because her braid reflects Her braid reflects her entire journey as a character. It first becomes a thing in To Honor the Departed, which is a story that I did a lot of work on. Most of you may not have been here for that when we were reading it originally, but it's a thing. I'm gonna loop back around and reread her entire arc at some point, but I'm still in the process of finishing some of the later stories, so we'll get there. The second is the moment a character speaks Thulin too lightly, and the consequences can unravel an entire arc. A false Thulin is a fracture in identity, honor, and relational trust. Trying to think of a specific instance here. Oh. I'm also trying not to give massive spoilers. So there is a... I don't know if this really applies, but there's a particular character in Steps into the Past that is not who they appear to be. And let's leave it at that. You will find out what I'm talking about. Okay. Oh, the third one is a silent Vareth in a pivotal scene. I don't know if Vareth was actually used, which is Katani for no. But it is kind of implied. There's a particular scene in Steps into the Past, I think it's chapter 19, where certain things occur and they have to communicate entirely in Veil Code, which is essentially combat hand signals, but it's real specific. It's taught only it's taught only to Veil cleared Marines and Jedi operatives who work under Veil. So in this particular instance, no words are spoken, just a series of gestures, and it basically stops everything that's going on in that particular location. And there's actually there's several instances of this next one. Two characters communicating entirely through gestures or manual Veil code. Like I just said, manual Veil code is similar in application to things like ASL or like Marine combat hand signals, but it's actually more like micro gestures. And this kind of communication actually happens a lot between the Veil cleared Marines that are around Marin, because they do it out of concern for her safety. So it's a bunch of little micro gestures that people who are not trained to interpret them would see them as like casual shifts, like maybe somebody brushes their knuckles across their belt buckle or something, and it means very specific things based on the different micro gesture. So there's a lot of that going on. Let's see. Let's see. Ooh. So I have a question for you guys before I kind of wrap up the stream. We talked about a lot tonight, okay? What part of Atashiir would you like to learn more about? Because I have a lot of information about it. And Veil Doctrine, and yeah, there's a lot. So, is there a... I know, I'm trying not to. I told Oh, dear. So my final question for you guys for the night before we start wrapping up stream is, given everything that we've talked about, what would you like to hear more about? There's a lot. So we talked, just as a recap, we talked about the roots of the layered language, the different braid lexicons, or the different meanings of the braids, the different types of Atashiir script, the kind of context of Vareth and Thalin, which is yes and no, and how it relates to ethics, and what the different forms of it mean. And also, we talked a little bit about Veil Doctrine, and there's a lot just in that. Just letting you know. There's a lot just in there. So, what kinds of things would you like to learn more about? Or if you're working on your own story, is there something that might, of everything that we've talked about tonight, that is sparking inspiration for you? I hope so. Because that's kind of where I'm at. I have been... Oh my goodness. I don't know how long that I have been working on this. I'll never tell. Yes, don't give away all the secrets. That is very important. I think of everybody in here, Lord knows me the most. Wow. Been 20 plus years, Lord? Oh, wow. I'm dating myself. Oh boy. Okay. Alright. Thanks, Ray. Oh my goodness, has it really been that long? Wow. I was way off. Wow. That's as long as I've actually been writing. I'm just gonna tell you that right now. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, no, you're right. You're right. For some reason I was thinking 2004, but you're right. Oh, man. Wow. Yeah. That's when I actually started writing. I think it was 16 or 17? Something like that. But yeah. It's been a long time. You shall answer in silence. Good brain. Alright. Okay. So, I just have one final thought for you guys before we kind of close it down for the evening. Well, you know what? I do have one final thought, but I do have one final thought, but first, before I actually close the stream down for the evening, I kind of want to open up the space for some questions. Like I said, we talked about a lot tonight. First of all, is there anything else, anything that we touched on tonight that you would be interested to learn more about without getting into spoiler territory? Is there something that you would like me to explore a little bit more? Something that we didn't touch on tonight? And you're always welcome to drop suggestions in the Discord if you're in there. I have a stream feedback channel. Please do that. That's what it's there for. So, I would love to hear what you guys really liked about the stream, or if there's something that you'd like to learn more about, or if there's something that I didn't touch on that you're curious about. Maybe I mentioned it in passing, but didn't really dig into it too much. Yeah, man. I was trying to not go into full lore gremlin mode tonight, but I think I did anyway. Oh man, I think it was like, yeah, I think I was 17 in 2000. Wow, yeah. Oh man. Give me 1 second. That actually load. Okay. Alright. Okay. If you guys think of anything that you'd like to see me talk about more or develop a little bit more, please feel free to drop that in the Discord or send me a message on Discord if you're not in the Discord. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts on everything that we talked about tonight, because there was quite a bit. I just want to close with this one little thought. Some food for thought for you guys for the evening. Oh, yes. That's kind of where I was at, like in a headspace when I was working on all of this. I was really looking for a way to convey meaning and kind of weight without necessarily having to use words, because words are kind of limiting. I mean, if we're being honest about it, words can be very limiting, and that's kind of where I was at headspace wise when I was developing all of this, is I really wanted to dig into that. So actually, that leads into my final thought for this evening. Atashiir as a language is not simply spoken. It is woven, carried, worn, carved, and held in silence until the right moment. It is a language built on the belief that truth is layered and that sometimes the deepest truths are the ones that are never spoken. That's my final thought for you guys for the evening. I appreciate each and every one of you being here tonight. Slightly different stream format for me this evening, but I really enjoyed digging into the lore a little bit more with you guys, because I've put a lot of thought into how this all kind of fits together. So that is my closing thought for you guys this evening. I am actually going to see if there's anyone that we can go say hi to. Well, thank you, Wraith. That actually led directly into my final thought for the evening. That was perfect. Give me just a minute here while I go see if we can say hi to you. Hey, you know what? I appreciate it. It is much appreciated. Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to find somebody else. The person that I wanted to raid, I don't think they're alive yet. So. Maybe they are. Which is just being weird. Okay. Twitch does that to me sometimes. There we go. Okay. Alright, my friends. We're gonna go say hi to a fellow streamer of mine. Really good friend of mine who is actually one of my mods. Just Sniper 13. He's playing Rocket League this evening, so we're gonna go and hang out with him for a little while. And I would greatly appreciate if you guys would tag along and show him the awesome appreciation that you guys do for me. I really appreciate you guys wandering by and hanging out and being nerds with me, because who doesn't like being a learner? I mean, that's kind of what I live for as far as writing goes. So I really appreciate everybody who has come by this evening and hung out and learned a little bit more about Atashiir and the Katani culture. So, I always like to talk about it, and I could go for hours. I really could. So for anybody who is subscribed to this channel, you can go ahead and grab that first raid message. And anybody who is a follower of the channel or simply watching and lurking, if you would be so kind, you can grab that second raid message. And we will go say hi to just Sniper. Thank you so much for being here this evening. I hope to see you all again on Wednesday. I will be continuing reading, I believe it's chapters 7 to 9 of Steps into the Past, as I did not read on my last reading stream 2 weeks ago because I was not feeling well. So, but I'm doing a lot better than I was, so we will be back to our regularly scheduled stream on Wednesday night, and we're gonna dive back in. Hope to see you all there, and I will see you guys over into Sniper's chat. Give me a second.